Hello, guys. So, we're going to get into our chapter 5. So, I'm going to sit here from the beginning, bleep me off. So, chapter 5 is kind of like a step away. We're going to take a step away from accounting and do some cash management. So, if anywhere in our accounting there's going to be issues with ethics, so people, taking money or whatever, this is where we're going to have those issues. So we would just want to go through and look, how we're going to do, write a check, how we're going to fill out the check stub, the different types of endorsements that the bank's going to require. And so, see if we can get this. Sorry, I've got my foot up and my ice on. I'm trying to balance everything. Okay, so the majority of our um, business is going to use cash, especially for the sole proprietorship. So you noticed when we did chapter 3 and we did all the transactions, quite a few of the transactions involved cash. And like I said, and this is where we're going to find issues if we have any, especially when it comes to people trying to steal money. So, of course, there's always those chance of recording errors, the ease of transfer without any questions about ownership, loss of cash when it's moved from one place to another. So we have to take all these things into consideration. So if you have one person in charge of all of the money, that's a lot of responsibility for that one person. And it leaves you, as the business owner, open to that one person taking advantage of you. So, some of the things that we have to talk about is um, signing the checks. So, this is why we do not use cash. We use checks because checks leave a trail, a paper trail. And I don't know if any of you guys have ever heard that term. I'm sure you have. We always look for a paper trail. Any kind of evidence, we want a paper trail of that evidence. And that's what a check does. Cash does not provide us that paper trail. So when you open up a checking account, hopefully, I think maybe some of you guys have had to do this, or you've opened up a savings account. One of the things they have you do is sign what they call a signature card. And they used to be a full on like 3x5 card. Now they have you do it on the computer. So you just write your signature, how you're going to be signing every single check. And then once those checks get processed, as they get processed through the bank compares your signature to what you put on your signature card. They also give you a deposit slip, and that deposit slip has your account number on it. So you can put, because you're required to start your bank account with a little bit of money. So some banks require you $5, some banks require you $50, some even up to $100. So it just depends on the bank. And that's one thing when you guys start to look for checking accounts and banks for your checking accounts, you'll want to look at that. So that deposit slip looks very similar to the one here on the screen. So it has a date. You see, we have our January 2nd. It has the address. It'll have the name of the bank. It'll have your name and address on it. At the bottom, it has a routing number and account number. And then it has a spot for you to put in currency is the cash, the green stuff, coins, and then down below is where you would put the checks, that if you have any checks to deposit. So this is basically a very basic deposit slip. So they all look very, very similar, but they all have the same information on them. So when you're depositing money, this is what we call a check stub. So um, a regular checking account, for a personal checking account, might just have the top check and then a um, the, oh gosh, what's the name of it? The paper underneath that will copy it. So that's for a personal checking account, but a business checking account is longer. So it has what this in purple. This is our check stub. So it has the check stub on the right or on the left hand side, and then the check is attached where you see this perforation here. The check is attached over on this side. So this way we can always keep track of our um, every single check we've written and every single deposit. So all of that will be entered into here on the check stub. So it will be put in the journal, and then it'll be recorded here in the check stub. So you see this transaction. This is a deposit for 2000. Over here, this must be the first deposit. Notice it's $0 in the account. January 2nd, which is the same date as on the deposit slip, it's for $2,000. So then we have a new balance of $2,000. And you would see this also when it is recorded in the journal. But remember, the journal only keeps track of the individual transactions. This guy right here in the purple is going to keep track of our money after every single money transaction. Okay. All right. So there are three different types of endorsements. Two we see the most. That is our blank endorsement and our restrictive endorsement. Blank endorsements are non-secure. Okay. So they're just your name written on the back. That's a blank endorsement. It's just your signature. If you were to drop this check, anybody could pick it up and deposit it into their account. So this is why the blank endorsement is the most unsecure endorsement. So if you ever get a check from your grandparents or from your parents for your birthday or something like that, or you get a check from from your job, you don't want to sign that check until you get to the bank. All right? Because if you sign it beforehand and something happens and you lose it, somebody else can actually deposit it. So just remember that this is the most unsecure. So blank endorsement is just your signature. The other type of endorsement is called the special endorsement. So basically, you're turning this check over to somebody else. So if your grandparents wrote you a check, right, wrote your name, but you don't have a checking account, you might have to put you might have, I don't know why this thing keeps going fast. I don't want to go. You might actually have to write the check out to your parents. So you might have to put pay to the order of your parents and then sign it. So then that way your parents can deposit it. The thing is, banks do not like these because they are considered third party checks. So the first party is the people that wrote you the check. You're the second party, and then the third party is who you're signing the check over to. So banks typically don't like these special endorsements, so just keep that in mind, okay? But they do, on occasion, will accept them, especially for minors. The last one, this is the most secure, and this is called the restrictive endorsement. So it says for deposit only to the account of, and then you would put the either the business or you, and you would sign it. So if you were to do this on the back of your check and you drop it, no one can pick this up and deposit it into their own account because it says for deposit only to the account of, and it's very specific. So this is the most secure type of endorsement. So, and on the back of checks that you would see from like Kmart, Walmart, those guys, they all have that for deposit only on them. So this is what the check stub, which is over here, and the checks look like. So on this one, this was a completed check for $165. So you would fill out the check stub first. The check stub is always the thing that gets filled out first because we need to have the record. So we have to fill out the top of the check stub first. So we put down how much the check was for, $165, the date, who it was to, and what it was for. So notice the 4 is also on the check, so it matches the 4 on the check stub. All right, so we always fill out the check stub first. Then we can fill out the check. The reason why we fill out the check stub first is because we don't want to forget anything. So there is that possibility of forgetting, so we don't want to forget. So once the check is filled out, then this top line is for the date. Paid to the order of is who I'm writing the check to, the amount. This one, whenever we write, we want to make sure that the number is directly next to the dollar sign. This leaves a little bit too much room. You could actually mess with this check and change it and turn it into a 965 instead of a 165. So you need to be aware of that. So there's things that we need to do. So I would write this number right next to the dollar sign. And then of course you can write it right at the very, you start your writing right at the very end of the line. And then they did a good job of putting a line all the way through to the word dollars. People can manipulate checks. It's super easy. What they do is they do a process called washing, and which reduces the amount of ink that you see, and then they can change your check to a different amount. So once you have your check written and you have all of that, then you've got your 4 in there, and then at the bottom line you would sign. If you look back at our check stub down here at the bottom, we have the amount of this check, and then we have subtracted because we had $2,000 in there. We spent $165, so that means we have less. So we have about $1,835 in there. Okay. All right. So like I said, you fill out the top, fill out the check, and then you would fill out the bottom. The bottom is not nearly as important as getting that top done, so then that way you can remember what it is. So you guys are going to get some practice writing out some checks. Now let's say we make a mistake on a check. We do have to record it in the journal. And so we would put the date. We would write just the word void because we would void the check. And we would put the check number in here that we had to get rid of. And nothing would have to be journalized other than the check number, the date, and that it was voided. So if we make a mistake on a check, we just need to record that it was a mistake. That's why there's no amounts here. We just need to know, because remember, when we're in the journal, everything is number. So we don't want to have a C23 and then a C25 and then go back and say, oh, what happened to C24? Oh, crap. And then find out that, oh, it was just a void. It's already in there. We put it in the journal as that void. Okay, the bank reconciliation is all of the information for our checking account for the month. So this is what similar to what a bank statement will look like. Now they don't print your whole account number on there. This one does, but they wouldn't have just have like the last 4. It has the statement date. It has your previous balance, how many numbers of checks you wrote, the total, how many numbers of deposits, how much your deposits were worth, any kind of service charge in here that the bank is going to charge you. Because remember, business accounts are different than personal accounts. So personal accounts, you could probably find a checking account with 0 balance or with 0 fees. A business account, not so much. They're always going to charge you a fee, and that's what this service charge is. It's a fee for actually being able to process all of your checks. So it keeps a running total over here under the balance of how much money you have in your bank account. Down here at the very bottom, you'll see that, they have the number of checks and then they have a service charge on there. So all of that information is on your on your bank statement. So the biggest thing we use this bank statement for is called a bank reconciliation. So basically we're just comparing what we have in our checking account to what the bank has. And so that's what you guys are going to be doing. So the first thing you'll put in is the date. This side over here, the right-hand side, is all about the bank. Okay, so it starts with the bank statement. It has any what we call outstanding deposits. Outstanding deposits means so anything outstanding means that it hasn't gone through the bank yet. So they've either been made or the checks have been written, but they're outstanding because the bank doesn't recognize them yet. So this first box is outstanding deposits. That means that on that date, we deposited some money that the bank doesn't know about yet. So obviously, if you look at these two numbers, they're added, and notice it has an add there. And then underneath, this is where all of our outstanding checks are going to go. So these are our checks that we've written, but they haven't gone through the bank yet. So the bank doesn't know that they have been written yet. So you write the check number and the amounts, you add those up, those go in there, and then we subtract. Okay? We subtract those two to get our adjusted bank balance. So this is how much the bank would have on their bank statement if they knew about these two things. Over here, the left-hand side is the easiest side. You just put how much money you have in your bank, so the last balance that you have, and notice it says the balance on check stub number 14. And then you put any bank charges. So they charged us one set of $25. We subtract those, and notice my two numbers here down at the very bottom, they match, and that's what they should do. So if they do not match, you do it again. You check your numbers, you make sure that you didn't write anything down, you didn't miss any checks that haven't gone through yet. You go through it again. If you still do not match, if you're still having troubles, then you call the bank and have them help you. That's what they're there for. Okay? The nice thing is ours are pretty easy and straightforward, so I think you guys will be okay. So we have to record that service fee on the check because it has to come out of our checking account. So here's that bank stub or that check stub number 14. We have to record under other that service charge for $25, and we're going to subtract it out and leave it as a subtotal. So then this check still hasn't been written, but we have our new updated balance in here of $25.97. All right. Okay. So we do have to journalize that bank service charge, that $25. So here it is. It's going to go under miscellaneous expense because it's such a low amount and it only happens once a month. Some businesses might do a bank service charge account, but most of them just put it under miscellaneous. So it was memorandum number 3. So you have the date, miscellaneous expense because expenses are always debits. M3, there's my 25, and then it has to come out of my cash account. So then that way my cash in my ledger, when it's posted, is up to date also. So we've put it in 3 different places, right? And so but the nice thing is this only happens once a month. Okay. All right. Now, a dishonored check means that for some reason somebody's written you a check and they don't have enough money in their account. So they call it a dishonored check, or if we do that, that's a bad thing. Okay. They also call them non-sufficient funds checks or NSF checks. Okay. So there's 3 different meanings to the same thing. So they're all a check written by our customers that they don't have enough money. Now, the bad thing is the banks charge us for our customers not having enough money. So that is something that we have to pay very close attention to. This is why a lot of businesses like Walmart, they still take checks, but they run them like debit cards. So they know that they're guaranteed their money right then. So if there's not enough money in those accounts, the checks don't go through. So to record the dishonored check, we would put that on the check stub. We have to take it out of, because remember, we don't know this until the check has been deposited on our end. So then we'll get a notice from the bank that says, hey, out of that $1,000 deposit, your a check for $200 or $225 was non-sufficient funds. So then we have to take that money out of the account. So we have to take it out of our check stub, out of our cash account here, and then we'll also take it out of, notice we've written dishonored check, and then we also have to take it out of our journal. And so it can be posted. So this is the transaction. August 29th, received a note for the bank of a dishonored check from Valley Landscaping. The check was for $185, but the bank charged us a $40 fee. So we're going to charge that $40 fee to Valley Landscaping, right? We can't just suck it up. That's going to be a lot of money. If 4 people give us bad checks, that's $160 in fees. So we're going to charge them. We're going to create an account for them called accounts receivable. So we're going to create an account for them for $225, and we're going to credit cash because we have to take it out of our cash account. So this creates the account. This says that they owe us, and then this takes it out of the cash account because we no longer have that $225 in our account because the bank took it out. All right. So we also make electronics fund transfer. So basically, we do pay some bills online. That's what this is. So we might pay our utilities bill online. We don't necessarily have to write a check, but we do have to journalize these payments. Sorry, guys, I need to take a drink of my coffee. Okay, so on this one, it says paid cash on account to Merrick Industries 380. Remember, we're not really paying cash. We're doing an online payment, but it is coming out of our cash account. So here's our payment. The debit to accounts payable, that means it's going down. And then our cash is also going down because we're making that payment. And it's going to come out of our checking account. All right. And then we can use a debit card to buy stuff. So in this example, on June 8th, the owner purchased supplies of $75 using a debit card. Memorandum 21, it's just supplies and cash. So the debit card is the same as cash. The only thing is instead of a check as a document number, we have the memorandum as the document number. All right. So the last part of this is, I think, a part that people struggle with the most, and that is what we call this petty cash fund. So every small business has a box that has a little bit of money in it in case, kids come in and want to sell a Tiger card, or a kid comes in from the high school and wants to sell a yearbook ad, so they have a little bit of money in a box, and that in that box is what we call the petty cash fund. So it has a little bit of money in it. And then, so petty cash, it's a asset. So it's a new account. And normally it's a normal debit decrease on the credit because it's set up like a normal asset because it's cash, right? And so we use this for just those little tiny things. If I wanted to go get donuts for my employees, I would use the money out of the petty cash fund to go do that. So it's to go buy little small stuff or pay for little small stuff. So the first transaction is to establish the petty cash. And this is the one and only time, and I cannot emphasize this enough, that you will use the actual account petty cash is when you establish it. Okay? That's the one and only time you're going to use that account is to establish it. So on the 19th, we established the petty cash fund for $100 and we took out $100 of cash out of our checking account. Now, this $100 is going to go into a box with some slips. Okay? That $100 is going to go into a box with some slips of paper. And I have some examples of petty cash slips in my desk, Mr. Bartlett, if you want to show the kids. So this is their example of what a petty cash slip looks like. It has a number on it. You would fill it out, the date, who you paid it to, what it was for, the account that it's going to go into, and the amount. So this one was to the dispatch, which must be their newspaper, for newspaper ad, and we're going to put it into advertising expense. So that slip replaces that $14 that I used to give to the dispatch. So the $14 in cash is going to go out, but this $14 slip will go in. So it's in place of. All right. So hopefully, if we do it right, we will not be short or over, but this is a new account that we have to deal with. It exists in our expenses account. Cash short is a debit, cash over is a credit. All right. So, because sometimes the reason why we need a cash short or over is because sometimes people don't give us the proper change back. So at the end of the month, they'll count up all of the money left in there plus the slips, and hopefully they would equal the $100. If they don't, if they only equal 99, then we're cash short $1, right? Because they only equal 99, it should equal 100. If it's cash over, that means that the money in the slips are over the $100, so maybe 101. So we're over $1. Okay, and that's important to know because when we replenish it, so we establish it and then we replenish it. When we replenish it, we need to know how much money we have to use. So this is the report we use to figure that out. So we have the date, who the custodian is. The top reconciliation is how much money we started with. The funds total payments, these are the slips that we have. So there were 2 slips in there for $34. So that's how much we should be replenishing the account for. So when we subtract that out, we should have $66 in the box. But when we counted, the box only had $65. So that left us with $1 short. Okay? So then that dollar gets moved over and we end up having to replenish it by $35. So we should have only replenished 34, but when we added, we were $1 short. We should have had 66, only had 65. So that dollar goes over here and we have to write a check for $35 to replenish it. I know I kind of went through that quick, but hopefully you can watch this over and over again. All right. So, like I said, cash short is a normal debit, cash credit or cash over is the credit. All right. So, it has debit is the normal balance, but it could be either one of those. So, to replenish, we do this transaction. So, we write down what we bought. So, we have our miscellaneous expense for $20. We have our advertising expense for $14. We have our cash short and over for $1. And then we have our cash down here for the 35. So remember, this is replenishing. We only write down what we bought. Okay, we only write down what we bought and what we spent. So this is all that we spent. We were short $1, so that's why it's on the debit. If it was over, it'd be over here on the credit. And then the cash is how much we have to get it back. We have to write the check to get it back to 100. Okay, and that's on that cash report. So this, like I said, takes a kind of detour off the normal accounting. We still have some transactions here and there, but it's not, but this is mostly just our cash management. So if you have any questions, ask Mr. Bartlett. I'm also going to be putting up the on your own or the work togethers on here. So have a great week.